When did you last say, when things settle down, or I'll do it later? Was it this week, today? Maybe it was just an hour ago. I want you to hold on to whatever it was that you were talking about when you said it. Was it the holiday, the rest you're going to take, the phone call, the version of you that finally gets to exhale? Because here's the thing that nobody tells you. Things will never calm down. They just change shape. The launch becomes the next launch. The busy season becomes a different busy season. And every single time that you say later, you're paying a tax. You just never actually get to see the invoice. Today, we're going to read that invoice together. Hey, gorgeous lady, I am Kat Saunders, and this is Set the Standard, the show for women who did everything right and is now ready to do what's true. Every week, we take one standard that you've been living by and ask the only question that really matters. Did you actually choose this? And if the answer is no, we set a new one. Welcome to episode 1. Let's get into it. So, the later tax. Let me tell you why later tax is the most seductive word in your vocabulary. It feels free. It costs nothing today. There's no confrontation in the later. There's no risk. There's no rearranging of anything. Later lets you keep everybody happy, keeps every plate spinning, and it still feels good. You still feel like a good person because you're not saying no. You're just saying not yet. Except later is never free. Later is a loan, and like with every loan, it has it compounds quietly in the background while you're busy being brilliant at everything else. And this tax gets collected in 3 different types of currencies. Let's see which one of these might actually land in your body. So the first one is the relationship tax. It's the dinner with your girlfriends that's been rescheduled 4 times. The phone call to your mom that you'll make on the weekend, and before you know it, the weekend's filled, and it's just vanished. The proper conversation with your partner that keeps getting parked because you're both exhausted. None of these feel like decisions, but each one is tiny, but it does continue to stack. 5 years of tiny, and you look up one day and you realize the people you're all doing this for are the ones getting the dregs of what's left over of you. The second is the body tax, and the rest you'll take up after this project. The checkup on, that you'll book next month, the sleep you'll catch up on, the sleep that your body actually never forgets. It's a debt, right? Your body has been sending you invoices for years. My love, it's the tight jaw. It's the Sunday night dread. It's the tired that the weekend doesn't actually fix. Those are the reminders. They are the things that your body is telling you. It can't send reminders forever. And eventually it's going to send you the final notice. And the third one, identity tax. And this one's a sneaky one. This is a version of you that only exists after. It exists later, after this quarter, after the kids are older, after the business hits a number. She's out there, isn't she? The one who will paint again, or will travel later, or will have that rest without guilt, or actually enjoys the life that you haven't even built yet. Every time you say later, she gets pushed one more season down the road, and she's been unbelievably patient with you. So that's the tax. Relationship, body, and identity. You pay it daily, and the invoice is always hidden. And I want to tell you where I learned my biggest lesson with this, because I didn't learn it in a book, but I paid this tax for, 15 years. And if I'm honest, the place I was paying the later tax, the hardest, was hidden inside of the thing I was most proud of. I was building my business, I was serving everybody else, and I was successful at it, genuinely successful. But everything to do with me, my life, my family, everything outside of that traditional version of success all got filed under the later section. That'll happen later. And here's how later works. It starts so innocently. I'll do that next year. That's all it is, next year. But next year says next year, and suddenly that's 3 years. And 3 years turns into 10. And before you even looked up, 10 years is, it was 15 years for me. 15 years of 100% successful, and in no way, shape, or form was it balanced. And it was never one big dramatic sacrifice. And that's the trap. It's so subtle in the moments that I've missed, moments that I wish I had more time, moments I could have chosen something different for myself. But I told myself I would later. And that invoice arrived when I lost my mum, because that's it. There's nothing I can do about that now. That's gone, and there is no more later. And I want to be honest with you. Yes, I was blessed to be by her side, literally until her last breath. And I'm always going to be grateful for that. But I'm going to say something that might be harder to hear. That's never going to be enough. Being there at the end doesn't buy back the middle. All those years, the later tax was quietly collecting the calls, the visits, the unremarkable time. That's the part you can never get back, and never get back in that last breath. That was the moment I said no. This stops. It needs to stop, not just for her memory, but because I finally understood what later was actually costing. It doesn't cost you someday. It costs you people. It costs you the moment. It costs you the version of your life that was actually available to you the whole time. So when I talk about the later tax, I'm not being clever with my words. I'm telling you the invoice is real. I've paid that one currency that you can never earn back, and I don't want that for you. Now, here's what I really invite you to hear, because this is the part everybody gets wrong. Your later habit is not a personality flaw. It's not you being disorganized. You're not bad at boundaries. You're not lacking discipline. You, of all people, please. You were handed a system. Somewhere along the way, you were given a model of success that says your present is the price, and it gets paid first, and you live on whatever is left over. Your time belongs to the machine first, and you're always last. Nobody sits you down and asks, did you agree to that? It came bundled with the career, with the business, with the good girl conditioning, the whole inheritance. You didn't choose it. You just absorbed it. And I want to be really clear. The women I know who pay the heaviest later tax are the most loving, most capable, most responsible women in any room. That's exactly why they pay it. Later feels like generosity. It feels like being reasonable. And it's neither. It is a slow leak in a life that deserves to be watertight. So we're not fixing you today because, you're not broken. You're simply canceling a contract you never signed. Sound familiar? That's the entire show in one sentence. Right. Practical spine time. 3 moves, small on purpose because momentum beats grandness every single day of the week. Move 1, audit the invoice. And do that today, not later. I want you to write down 3 things currently filed under the later in life. Actually, name them, not just vague ones like self-care. Let's be specific. The weekend away, with my sister, the physio appointment, learning to surf, whatever they are, get them out of the fog and onto some paper, because here's the principle. Later tax only compounds whilst it's invisible. The moment you can see the invoice, you have the power over it. You cannot renegotiate a debt you're refusing to look at. Move number 2 is pull one forward. Look at your last 3. Now take the smallest one, not the biggest, not the most impressive, not the one you think you should pick, the smallest, and give it a date this week. In the diary, it's a non-negotiable, defended, like you would that important meeting or whatever it is, because here's what happens. When you pull one small thing forward and it actually happens, your brain gets evidence that the world doesn't fall apart when you stop, deferring yourself for later. And evidence, my friend, is how you get self-trust. Self-trust gets it rebuilt, one kept promise at a time. Move number 3, set the standard sentence. Yeah? This is the one you say out loud. Finish this sentence. I no longer defer. One thing, just one thing. I no longer defer my mornings. I no longer defer those phone calls. I no longer defer rest. And I want you to say it out loud and write where you see it and tell it to someone who will hold you accountable for it. This is the sentence that sets your new standard. It's not a goal. It's not an intention. It is the standard. And goals are the things that you chase. Standards are the things that you get to hold. So let this land. The later tax doesn't send you a bill. It just continues to quietly collect from your relationships, from your body, and from the woman you desire to become. It's been collecting for years, with your permission on terms that you never agreed to. And from today, you get to stop paying it, not by blowing up your life, by pulling one thing forward this week and watching what it proves to you. If this episode hits something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Send me a DM and I'll send you a resource, that you can actually tap into. And if you know a woman who has been saying when things calm down or, I'll do it later for as long as you've known her, send her this episode. That's how this conversation grows, one woman handing it to another. Because you were never meant to meet the standard. You were meant to set it. I'll see you next week.